welcome to episode 3.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are not in the usual settings today, so we apologize in advance if our sound is a little weird today.
Yeah, we just couldn't make our schedules work to go back to recording on the other equipment that we've been recording on. So if we sound like we're underwater, sorry about that.
It should be better next week. We should be back to normal, but...
Yep, but we didn't want to leave you guys without an episode this week, so we wanted to go ahead and try this, and we're experimenting. We'll see how it works.
So bear with us.
So just some regular stuff. Remember, you can find us on social media at Twisted and Mysterious. You can email us at twistedandmysteriousPodcast@gmail.com. And if you are listening, please take a minute to rate and review if you can do that for us, please.
It'll really help us out. We're trying to get our podcast to a wider audience. So, yeah, thanks.
All right. So this week we are going to talk about Israel Keyes. Do you know about Israel Keyes?
The name sounds familiar, but off the top of my head, I can't think of who he is.
Okay. So, well, I'll tell you about him.
All right.
Israel Keyes was born on January 7th, 1979 in Richmond, Utah to Heidi and John Keyes. He was the second out of 10 kids.
That's too many kids.
Yeah, that's a lot of kids. His family were members of the LDS Church, and they did not believe in government interference, public schools, or modern medicine. At the age of 5, the Keyes family moved to Colville, Washington. They lived off the grid in a one-room cabin, isolated in the woods with no heat or electricity. So there's 10 kids, 2 parents, in a one-room cabin, no electricity or running water.
I already feel like we don't have enough room, and we have bedrooms.
Yes. Yeah, this would be really bad. I guess at one point, the kids even lived in, like, tents because there wasn't enough room in the cabin for all of them.
All right.
Yeah. So the parents left the Mormon church, and they joined a white supremacist church called the Ark. And Israel says that it was kind of a militia-type group.
Okay.
They then moved to Maine and lived near an Amish community. I'm not sure if that was on purpose or if it was just reported as like a location marker. I know one source said that they were into like the maple syrup market up there. Like they would tap trees and make their money that way.
White supremacy and maple syrup.
Go together hand in hand. Keyes claims that he would break into neighbors' homes to steal guns, which he would then sell back to adults. He loved hunting, quote, anything with a heartbeat, and he tortured animals. And he did really disgusting things to animals that I'm not even going to mention because they made my stomach hurt when I was reading about them. After he was caught later and I was watching an interview with him, he's chuckling as he says, "I've known since I was 14 that there were things that I thought were normal and okay that nobody else seemed to think were normal or okay. As a teenager, he rejected his family's faith and he was kicked out and cut off. He then became interested in Satanism and planned to commit a ritualistic murder."
Fancy.
I don't know. In 1997 or 1998, Israel Keyes alleges to have attacked his first victim, but says he did not murder her. He abducted and raped a teenage girl who was tubing down the Deschutes River in Oregon. He said that he let her go, quote, "I was too timid. I wasn't violent enough. I made up my mind I was never going to let that happen again."
Good for him.
Not violent enough. In July 1998, if you guys can hear random piano playing in the background, that's just the cats. They are professional piano players. July 1998, Israel moved to New York and enlisted in the Army and became an Army Ranger, which I have heard is no easy task, and was stationed at Fort Hood, Texas, Fort Lewis, Washington, and Sinai, Egypt. No crimes were reported during this time, but Israel did tell a fellow soldier once that he wanted to kill him. And he admitted that he attempted to rape a sex worker in Egypt and a college student, but I guess he didn't go through with it. He received an Army Achievement Award for service as a gunner, and he was honorably discharged and settled on the Macaw Reservation near Nia Bay, Washington.
All right.
In 2000, shortly before his Army discharge, he fathered a daughter with a woman on the Macaw Reservation that he had met online, and after he left the Army, he went to live with them on the reservation, and he worked for the Macaw Tribal Council from 2001 to 2007. In 2007, he left that woman and took his daughter to Alaska, where he moved in with a woman who was a nurse practitioner he had been dating, and he started Keys Construction, where he performed duties as a handyman, contractor, and a construction worker. So everything that I saw and read, he was really helpful, and people would hire him to go in their house. And
very handy.
Yeah, he was very handy. And now, looking back, I'm sure they're all, just mortified that they let this monster into their houses. Which, as far as I can tell, he didn't take advantage of any of the people that he worked for. He didn't hurt any of them, but it still would be creepy knowing that that creep had been in my house.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is believed that he killed 11 people between 2001 and 2012, but he's only definitively linked to 3 of them. He had very detailed planning that went into his crimes. So the main reason that I know about Israel Keys is because I had listened to a podcast about him that my impression that I was left with was that he would bury all of these, what he called a kill cache, around the country.
Right.
And then when he was ready to commit a crime, he would go to one of these places and he would commit the crime with this kill cache. But apparently he only did that once, but that's kind of what he's known for, even though he only did it once.
So he's the guy that the new Criminal Minds is based on.
Yes. Yeah, and I was going to talk about that too. So he traveled a lot for business, and he crisscrossed the country, and it is known, or at least believed, that he did hide these kill caches in multiple places. So it was just a regular orange Home Depot bucket, the one that they did dig up, that had guns, ammunitions, chemicals for the destruction of bodies. And in May of 2020, 48 Hours ran a special on him where the FBI showed one of these kits for the first time. Nobody had ever seen them before that. And like I said, it was just a basic orange Home Depot bucket. And the idea of the cache, again, was that when he wanted to kill, he could just go to a place where he had buried one and he would dig it up.
Mm-hmm.
Traveling gave him opportunities to find potential victims. He also made foreign journeys to Canada, Mexico, and Belize, where he possibly had plans for a killing spree that never happened. And he funded all of his travel from his contractor business, as well as robbing banks. The FBI has...
Like we said, he's very handy.
The FBI has corroborated 2 bank robberies in Tupper Lake, New York in April of 2009. And I've never heard of this town in Texas. It's spelled A-Z-L-E. Azle?
Maybe.
Azle, Texas in February 2012. And while he was on the road, he would pay for everything in cash, and he would take the battery out of his phone to lessen the chance that he would be caught. He studied the work of FBI profilers and serial killers such as Ted Bundy. He idolized Ted Bundy. But
who doesn't?
Me. I do not. He's a creep. He did, however, shun media attention after he was caught because he was worried about how it would affect his daughter, and he didn't want to be labeled a copycat. And I can't remember what source I was reading when I read this because I read it a while ago. It said, and it was only in one source, but it said that he was fitted with a lap band, possibly as a way to lessen hunger while he was traveling.
Do people just do that?
I don't know.
I thought there was very specific criteria for getting those sorts of things.
But I mean, also if it said that he traveled out of the country too, so
True.
He could have gone to Mexico and had this done. I don't know. I don't know if it actually happened because I did only read it in one source. But yeah. I mean, I guess that would be something. I need one to lessen my hunger. So he didn't really have any, like, specific victim type.
Yeah.
It was all based on circumstance. And he would accost people, well, he claims, because, again, he's only been linked to 3 murders, that he would accost people who were alone, or there would be no witnesses in parks, cemeteries, and campgrounds.
So just convenience.
Absolutely, it was just convenience. So the first of his known murders happened in June of 2011. And Keyes flew to Chicago and then drove 15 hours to Essex, Vermont, where he murdered Bill and Lorraine Currier. And again, simply just because they fit his criteria for being alone. They had no children, they didn't have any animals, and their house had an attached garage, which is another thing he looked for because apparently this made it easier to break into the home without anyone noticing. He broke in, he subdued the couple, he drove them to an abandoned farmhouse where he killed Bill, and then he raped and killed Lorraine. He left their bodies in the basement of the farmhouse, and then sometime after the murder, the house was demolished and taken to the landfill. And so, unfortunately, they've never found Bill and Lorraine's bodies because they didn't know they were there when the house was demolished. And so all of this stuff just got taken to the landfill. And the FBI's looked, but they've never been able to find them. And then, so that's 2 of the 3 murders that he's known for. And then the third one, his only other known victim, and also how he gets caught in the end, is a girl named Samantha Koenig. And so on February 1st of 2012, Samantha Koenig was working at a roadside coffee stand in Anchorage, Alaska. She was getting ready to close up when a man approached the window. And so on the 48 Hours episode, you can watch this happening. They have the security footage.
Yeah, like that one sounds pretty familiar to me.
So you see her, it's like closing time, and she like walks over to the window, and you see her talking to somebody, and then she backs up and puts her hands up like you would, like if somebody was pointing a gun at you. And then she walks over and she turns off the lights, which they assume that he told her to go turn off the lights. And then you see him climb through the window. And then they leave together, and you can see the security footage from the outside of them walking together. And I guess she did like run and he had to tackle her, but that's not on the security footage. You don't see that, but it was on the 48 Hours. They talked about it. Let's see. So her boyfriend went to pick her up. She wasn't there. He attempted to call her several times but received no answer. And after hours, the boyfriend received a text message from Samantha's phone that said something to the effect of, "I'm going on vacation. I'm tired." And that was so out of character that he and her family knew that there was something wrong. Keyes had taken Samantha back to his house, where he held her in the shed behind his house and sexually assaulted her, and then the following day he killed her. And then he left her body in the shed and went on a 2-week family cruise in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
As one does.
As one does.
And so when he gets back after 2 weeks, he applies makeup to her, sews her eyelids open with fishing wire, and then took a picture of her next to a 4-day-old newspaper so it looked like she was still alive. And then he sent the picture to her family from her cell phone and demanded a $30,000 ransom be deposited into her bank account. And luckily, that picture has never been released to the public because...
Ew.
Yikes. Yes. And her poor family. So... her family complies. They send the $30,000 to her bank account, and then since she's already dead, he dismembers her and he dumps her into the Matanuska Lake north of Anchorage. And FBI, what do they call them? The like search and rescue people. They find her on April 2nd, 2012. And I guess I didn't write this down, but I was just remembering from watching 48 Hours. In all of these interviews that he gave to the police after he was caught, I guess he had gone ice fishing. And so he had cut a hole in the ice, and then he had like put her down into the hole. And the FBI or whoever was questioning him was like, well, did you fish while you were there? And he was like, oh yeah, I did some fishing. And he said, well, did you catch anything? And he said, yeah. And the FBI said, well, what did you do with the fish? And he said, I took them home and I ate them.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just like...
just another day.
Yeah, I know. Bizarre. I don't know how some people's brains work.
People are gross.
So, okay, so they found her April 2nd of 2012. So then this dummy goes on a road trip with her debit card, withdrawing the ransom money out of her account in ATMs in Alaska, New Mexico, Arizona, and Texas. And even though he was wearing a disguise, the security camera at the ATM that he went to in Arizona caught his rental car.
Mm-hmm.
And so the law enforcement sent out a bolo to basically all of the law enforcement along the I-10 corridor, because that seemed to be like what he was traveling on to get all of these ATMs. And so Texas law enforcement was monitoring hotel parking lots for out-of-state plates that matched the description on the bolo. And on March 13th of 2012, officers noticed a car matching the description in a hotel parking lot in Lufkin, Texas. And when he left the parking lot, he was followed. And when he drove just slightly over the speed limit, it gave officers probable cause to stop him and search him, where they found incriminating items in his possession, such as Samantha Koenig's debit card and cell phone, as well as cash stained with bright ink indicating a die pack from a bank robbery. So this ties him to those bank robberies that he eventually, confesses to. He was arrested by Texas Highway Patrol Corporal Brian Henry and Texas Ranger Stephen Rayburn, and he was eventually taken back to Alaska, where he confessed to Samantha's murder after being confronted with the evidence that they had against him. And after all of the meticulous planning that he had put into his crimes, he admitted that with Samantha's murder, he was feeling out of control, and he said, quote, back when I was smart, I would have let them come to me. So he wasn't, I guess, I don't know. You know how they say, oh, well, I don't know. We watch so many Criminal Minds, and it's like, you see the ones that are like, they're so meticulous, and then like they start like getting like frantic or frenzied or whatever, and they start getting out of control, and that's when they make the mistakes and all of that. But he
they get comfortable sometimes.
But like this one, like he just like, I mean, only 2 murders that it's still a lot, but
one is enough.
You know, it's
one is more than enough.
It's not like he like had committed all of these like murders, like many murders, and then he so I don't know what happened. So while those are the only known victims, it is believed that Israel murdered 8 other people. He admitted to 5, but he never named names. There was a couple in Washington between 2001 and 2005, 2 separate victims in Washington in 2005 and 2006, a woman named Deborah Feldman of New Jersey who went missing in April 2009 and was found in, her body was found in New York. And they've pretty much like said that was Israel Keys, that they're pretty sure about that. And then there was a mother and a daughter, Mary Cooper, 56, and her daughter, Susanna Stodden, 27, who were shot while hiking in Washington in 2006. And then there was a little girl who was, I think she was like a Paralympic or some kind of like athlete. Her name is Julie Harris, and she was 12 years old, and she disappeared from Colville, Washington on March 6, 1996. And her prosthetic feet were found a month after she vanished, and her remains were found in 1997. And I saw the clip where the FBI is asking Israel Keys about this crime, and he said that he knew the name and he knew of the crime, but he said that he didn't commit the crime. So I don't know. It was in the same area where he had been, but there's nothing to like actually tie him to it. So after his arrest, you watch all of these videos of him having these conversations with the cops, and like they're just like laughing, and I mean, I know that the cops have to do this to like
have to
make
play
him comfortable
along.
Yeah, but he's just like so comfortable, and he's just like, oh, I want a Snickers, and oh, I want a cigar, and oh great, you got me this, and but he seem to like withholding information from them. I guess, I mean, it all goes back to like the power thing, like having some control over it. So he offered details about Bill and Lorraine Currier's murders in Vermont, but he stopped cooperating after his name was made public because, quote, he didn't want his mother or daughter to suffer because of his crimes. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, then why did you do that?
Yes. If you didn't want them to suffer, you shouldn't have committed the crimes.
Yeah. And even though he hadn't been tried yet, he did ask for a swift execution date because he dreaded languishing in prison for years. And in May...
If you don't want to go to prison, don't murder people.
Exactly. Yeah, that seems like the easiest way. Don't do crimes.
Yes.
And you don't do times.
So this is advice to everyone. If you don't want to go to prison, don't commit crimes.
It seems like easy, like common sense. Mm-hmm. But I don't know.
I guess some people need to be told.
I guess. In May 2012, he attempted to escape the courthouse, a la Ted Bundy. While he was there for a routine hearing, he broke his leg irons, but he was quickly subdued with a stun gun. And his trial was set for March 2013, and federal prosecutors were pursuing the death penalty. On December 2nd, 2012, so... oh yeah, that's afterwards. I was like looking at my dates and I was like, this is before that. So he attempted to escape the courthouse in 2012. And on December 2nd, 2012, so 6 months later or whatever, Keyes, who was 34, was found dead in his cell in Anchorage from an apparent suicide. Somehow he had gotten his hands on a razor, even though he wasn't supposed to have one, which he used to slit his wrist, and he attempted to strangle himself with his bed sheet. He drew 11 skulls and 1 pentagram in blood on the wall of his cell, which they believe stands for his 11 victims. Mm-hmm. And on the bottom of one of the pictures were the words, "We are one." And this can also be seen on the 48 Hours episode. It was like the first time that they had ever shown the public these pictures.
Right.
And now you can see them all over the internet, mm-hmm. but that was the first time you saw them. He also left a 4-page suicide note under his body, which the police were hoping was going to be like deathbed confession or whatever.
Confessional.
But apparently, and I didn't find it. I didn't look for it either, but it didn't just pop up. But apparently it rhymed a lot. It criticized American consumerism and the banality of daily life, celebrated his murders, but didn't offer any clues or leads to identify other possible victims. I mean, there was rhyming.
Yes, you made sure to write a poem.
Yes. His mother, his 4 sisters, and his 3 brothers-in-law were sole attendees at his funeral held on December 8th, 2012. So, it's believed, like I said a minute ago, that the murder kits, there's still murder kits buried around. He said that there were. FBI Special Agent Catherine Nelson said that she's optimistic that they can find answers to other cases, and she asked the public for help on the 48 Hours episode. And then I did have another note on here, which we already talked about, that Criminal Minds Evolution, the killer Elias Voigt, is loosely based on Israel Keyes. He travels for work, he buries murder kits, but in the case of Criminal Minds, he buries them for other murderers to use. Yes. He doesn't use them himself. But yeah, so that is the story of Israel Keyes.
Yeah. He sounds like a real fun guy.
Yeah. I mean, I just hope, because like we need handyman services. Mm-hmm. But I really hope that
that none of them turn out to be serial killers.
Yes. That would be great. And that's always like the worry about everything is like, you never know who you're inviting into your house.
Well, into your life. Or I was going to say, because like even spouses murder each other. And so it's like you never know how creepy someone really is. Like, I don't know how you're supposed to get to know people. And
I don't know. And then they say that you walk by like so many like murderers in your lifetime, like just like walking past people on the street and you don't even realize that you're walking past murderers. Yeah. But I don't know. It's no good.
Yeah.
Just stay away from people.
Yeah.
Learn how to be your own handyman.
Get on YouTube. Learn how to do it yourself. There's plenty of videos out there.
Yeah. I would say that Criminal Minds and True Crime Podcasts have made me very paranoid.
Oh, I know. It's really hard to go on dates with people that you don't know, even people that you do know, and assume.
I don't know how you do it.
I don't know. I don't like doing it. I assume everyone's going to murder me.
I also assume everybody's going to murder you. So every time you're gone, I'm just like, I really hope Farron doesn't get murdered.
I just don't know how you're supposed to know. But, so, again, sorry if we're out of our element this week. We are literally out of our element. And hopefully everything will be back to normal next week.
Yep, so check us out on social media at Twisted and Mysterious. Send us suggestions for stories if you have them to twistedandmysteriousPodcast@gmail.com, or you can send us a DM, and we'll see you next week.
My Ozempic is making my blood sugar crash.
Oh, we better go get a snack.
So, as always, remember that people are gross and don't get murdered.
All right, see you next
week.
time.
Bye.
Bye.